wonderful to be here discussing transformational talent with a room full of HR leaders from some of the biggest companies in India. The format we'll follow today is that I will provide some food for thought in about 20 minutes. And then we have Leena, who's got 4 questions for you, and this will be an interactive session. She will pose a question for which each table will discuss, and for about 3 minutes, and then come up with a collective view that's come up, or if there's dissension, that's great as well. So with no further ado, we'll get into the food for thought for today. In every field of human endeavor, there are people who accomplish extraordinary things. And now we're going to look at 2 examples. The first person I'll talk about is somebody you know very well, J.R.D. Tata. He was the first person to get a commercial pilot license in India. At 34, he became the chairman of Tata Sons. And most importantly, the kind of landmark he set in corporate social responsibility in India is something which companies are trying to live up to even today. The second example I have is somebody you possibly have not heard of, most of you have not heard of. This is Dennis Kimetto. In 2013, he won the Chicago Marathon. 4 years before he won the Chicago Marathon, he was a farmer, growing corn and rearing goats in Kenya. He met an elite runner from his country, and he said, that's what I want to become. And in 2013, he actually participated and won the Chicago Marathon. So when we think of these extraordinary performances, it's hard not to ask, what sets these people apart? Is it luck? Is it timing? Is it innate ability? Is it effort or perseverance? So we decided to answer this question. We decided to look at certain places, and the first place we looked at was Dennis Kimetto's performance in 2013 Chicago Marathon. And we noticed some very interesting things. Even among the finishers of the marathon, the distribution of time was very varied. So we had Dennis Kimetto, who took about 2 hours to finish the race, and then we had people who finished it in 8 hours. So the variance in performance was fairly large, even amongst the people who finished the marathon. But what we noticed was the fastest runners were shockingly faster than the rest. So when we looked at the performance and we started seeing increased performance by every 10%, and we would notice a 5% increase in performance. And this was true till we reached the top 10%. It went up by 5%, 6%, 8%, never crossing 10%. But when we looked at the difference of the top 1% from the top 10%, there was a 24% difference in performance, in speed. The speed came down by about 24%. And the difference between the top 1% and Dennis Kimetto, 23%. Now, this is not just true of sport. We found this pattern in many, many fields of human endeavor. Some of you work with software companies, and this might be close to your heart. This is the HackerRank performance. When we look at performance, aggregate performance, and see the top 1% of finishers, they're 38% better than the top 10. And the best score in HackerRank was 47% better than the top 1%. And this pattern exists in our workplaces as well. Steve Jobs of Apple said, and I quote, "I noticed that the dynamic range between what an average person could accomplish and what the best person could accomplish was 50 or 100 to 1. Given that, you're well advised to go after the cream of the cream. A small team of A+ players can run circles around a giant team of B and C players." Now, Steve Jobs did not just talk about it, he actually showed it. Apple, when they developed Apple OX, took 600 engineers and 2 years to complete it. At the same time, Microsoft developed Windows Vista with a team of 10,000 engineers and took over 5 years to complete it. So essentially, we were looking at 3 questions here. What is the impact of transformational talent in our workplace? What do transformational people have in common? And finally, and most interestingly, how do we build teams that is overflowing with top talent? The first question, what is the impact of transformational talent in our workplace? So we discovered answers from 4 prominent employers. When we put this question to Bain & Company, they said that a top employee at Bain would be 4 times more productive than an average employee. Then we asked this question to GE. They said 10 times more productive. And then we asked Apple, and they said 25 times more productive. And then we asked Google, and the most surprising answer came from them. They said 300 times more productive. So an average worker at Google versus a top talent, there's a difference of 300%. So if this is the case, what is true? Is it 4 times or 300 times? Who's correct? Well, the answer is they may all be right. It all comes down to where you draw the line on what top talent is. Personnel psychology did some research around performances and output in 2012, and this research came out with some very interesting findings. Some of it was not very, very new, but all of us knew about that. The bottom 10% of talent is responsible for 0% output in organizations. The next 85% is responsible for 74% of the output. The top 4% is responsible for 16% of your output. And the top 1% is responsible for 10% productivity, which is 10 times more than what your average worker would do. So this is one part of the question. The second question was, what do transformational people have in common? Is there a trait by which you can identify transformational talent, whether within your organization or when you're speaking to people doing interviews? So to answer this question, we did some research in India. We did in-depth interviews, which was done by an organization called Discuss.io on our behalf. They spoke to 8 mid-level managers who had managed teams with at least 5 reports. And then we did an employer survey where we spoke to about 500 managers who've been in a people management role at least for 1 year and have managed at least 5 direct reports. And finally, we did a job seeker survey as well, where we spoke to about 4,000 people, 3,000 employed and 1,000 unemployed in the age group of 18 to 45, the productive age, so to speak. And we looked for answers to this question. So we asked these 500 hiring managers this question. Think about the most impressive top performer in your current company or your previous role, and what is that one attribute that stood out? So let's do a thought experiment. As we look at what the answers of the survey are, take 20 seconds to think about the topmost employee in your company today or in a company you worked in previously, and think about that one attribute, and let's say if that matches up with what we have found as a part of the survey. So essentially the 5 leading attributes of transformational talent that came out from this research was problem solving, efficiency, communication, passion, and self-direction. So if you were to bucketize this, problem solving, efficiency, and communication essentially come with experience. This is something you learn by doing as many. You solve a lot of problems, you become better at problem solving. You do your work more often, you become efficient at it. And the more you communicate both orally and written, you become better at communication. And the other 2 was a bias to action. This was something which is inherent. Passion and self-direction directs you to do something. This is bias towards action. So it was really not a question of whether it was effort or experience. It was effort and experience that contributed to top talent. So we have found a simple formula for transformational talent: 40% effort and 60% experience. So as employers, as people who are involved with people and also bringing in people to our organization, 2 things that people need to look for to identify great talent is bias for action and a track record of doing things effectively. And when we interview people, either for our teams or for our organizations at large, every person who's part of the interview process must look for this if they're looking to hire great talent. So finally, interesting question from our perspective. How do we recruit and build teams overflowing with top talent? The most successful top talent recruitment programs are built around 3 ideas. The first idea is top talent have options. You need to inspire them. So we did the research from the job seekers gave us some really interesting inputs. What made people change jobs? The biggest source for wanting to change jobs was when people saw companies or jobs which inspired them. And 22% of the people we spoke to said that's why they would change jobs. But coming a close second was when they felt dissatisfied with their current job. And there was 15% who said when they were dissatisfied with their current situation. And these were the top 3 reasons why generally people change jobs, not necessarily people who are very talented. So when choosing a job, top performers were different. They were 45% less likely than the rest of the population change jobs because they were discouraged by a situation. Top talent is more likely than the typical worker to be attracted to a new job by company reputation. This matters a lot. They said that this, and it was 2% more than the regular workforce. 4% clear path to career advancement. And this is really important. And I don't know how many people who are involved in recruitment actually pay attention to this. Company mission and vision. Top talent is attracted by that, and our research proved it. 25% more than average workers, top performers are inspired by companies' mission and vision. And possibly one of the most important things, the team they're going to work for. 78% more than the average worker. And importantly, what are they going to learn and how they're going to grow. Another interesting piece, top talent is 6% less attracted by compensation and benefits than the regular crowd. Great companies use mission, purpose, and impact to attract transformational talent. Let's look at a few examples. One company which is based in my city, Flipkart. If you were to look at their the HR mission, they talk about, and I quote, working at Flipkart is more than just a job. It's a way of life. At Flipkart, we believe in taking care of all facets of your life, be it professional or personal. Our focus is to develop you into a well-rounded professional, and we believe in contributing wherever possible to make your journey at Flipkart a fabulous one. Ola, another company from the city I come from, we believe that innovation is part of our DNA, and every employee embodies Ola's larger goals and values. We encourage all our employees to practice the utmost creative freedom in everything they do, allowing for groundbreaking ideas, innovation, and steady advancement. In the internet economy, top talent will find you if you make it easy for them to find you. When it comes to career decisions, top talent want to choose their own path. So we put together 2 statements and put it to these people, and we said, and I quote, I would feel more confident a job is the right fit for me when I pick the company and apply, rather than being contacted by an external party for the position. 78% of people we classified as top talent agreed to this. And I quote the second statement, I think I would be more successful in a job I found and got on my own versus a job which I got through an external party. 68% agreed to the statement. Another important thing, a little scary, but not very, 98% of people who are classified as top talent says they look for job opportunities every year. And 90% said they look for job opportunities every month. In fact, of all the people we spoke to, only 7% said they were not thinking about their careers or jobs. They were sitting and doing their own work when some recruiter called and got them interested in a job. There were only 7% of people who had actually changed jobs who said that. Today, unfortunately, many companies have built recruitment processes that are inadvertently eliminating active transformational talent. Top talent is out there looking for jobs, but can they find you? Can they abide by the processes you have created? Finally, can you talk to them about what interests them and walk them through the door of the company? Make it easy for top talent to get through your door. In the era of job search, transformational talent will find your jobs. You'll have to inspire them. You'll have to tell them why they want to work for you. You'll have to make it easy for them to show interest. You'll have to respond quickly to applicants, create a wow experience when they're going through interviews, build a personal collection, show them what's special about your company, And finally, the offer that you make needs to focus on the right things for what they want to change jobs, rather than just legalese and information about pay. Companies with strong brands and reputations will have strong pipeline of talent. For companies that aren't very strong in terms of brand, will need to focus on building their brand. And that need not necessarily involve spending a lot of money on branding related exercise. Think of some of the best companies today where a lot of young, talented people want to work for, and how much they've invested in brand building through the conventional path. They've invested effort in brand building. The biggest issue today is most companies accidentally eliminate top talent very early in the recruitment process. When companies make it hard for people to show interest, top talent will go elsewhere. And when I say make it easy, tough for people to show interest, I'm talking about making an application to your company. How tough is it? How many pages of applications do they have to fill? Research shows that you lose 4% of candidates for every minute you add to the application process. If top candidates cannot apply to your jobs, they will not. Today, you'll have to realize that people are coming for jobs using different devices. 68.8% of traffic that Indeed gets comes from a mobile device. If people cannot see or apply to your jobs on a mobile, you're losing a lot of good people. So what does great look like? Netflix, it takes 1 minute to complete an application. A person sees a job, likes it, and from the time he hits the apply button, what he needs to complete to submit his application, 1 minute, 5 questions. And some of our companies in India are not too far away. Paytm, again, 5 required fields, 1 minute to complete an application to Paytm. We have a product called Indeed Apply, which if you use, you can get 6 times more applications than the rest. There's a small button that you can put in which will help push applications out faster. So where do we go from here? We all know what's happening today. There is automation, which means that some jobs are getting eliminated. There's a shortage of skills. I mean, there are jobs openings which we have for which we are not able to find the right talent. Companies will continue to leverage technology to ensure that jobs get done. So what this will mean is that companies will hire fewer people. But the fewer people that they hire will need to make an amazing impact in the organization. So in summary, you need to inspire talent. You need to make it easy for top talent to find you. You need to keep your apply processes simple. You need to create a great top talent experience as they go through the recruitment process. And every person who actually interviews a candidate must look for the 5 markers of top talent. Right from the recruiter who's screening the candidate to the hiring manager who's actually interviewing them for roles in their teams. And finally, make offers that matter to top talent. You can dream, create, design, and build the most wonderful place in the world, but it requires people to make the dream a reality. Thank you so much for this. I hope this was instructional.
So we heard from Shashi some research-based insights that we got. What we would do now is have a small group discussion at your tables on some questions that I have for you. So the first one is, we saw 5 attributes which through research was thrown as what defines a transformational talent. The question that I have for you to discuss is, how does the organization context and current capability impact those 5 attributes? Would you change the attributes because your organization context is different, or would you keep it the same? Or is it also that the kind of capabilities you have or you don't have also determines what you're looking for when you are looking for transformational talent? So we'll give you 3 minutes to discuss that at your table, and we'll just go quickly around to get thoughts from each one of the tables. Okay?
So I think we've looked at these 5 characteristics on the efforts as well as efficiency side. And what we realize is that from our own experience of having worked with different organizations, these come across to us as more of universal traits. So regardless of the context of the organization, I think if people have these traits in them, it is quite likely for them to be those transformational leaders that organizations of today require. So, I mean, there can always be certain other attributes, but they will largely be subset of these broad 5 attributes. So that is what, you know,
great.
Summary from our table is.
Great.
So on our table, we were discussing that most of the points you have covered in that particular presentation which you shared. Although in the last session, they had shared on ownership, pride, and engagement. So these are the 3 areas which also can be a part of the top 5.
So then it becomes top 8.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So that is something which we discussed on our table. And another point which was we were trying to understand that around 99% of the top talent is looking for a job on a monthly basis.
That also worried me. Why should
Yeah.
I hire somebody who's always looking for
Absolutely.
a job?
So it's
So that number was for people who are looking at job opportunities, not necessarily looking to change.
They are
So they're looking
open.
for job opportunities. So point is they're looking for something.
Not, yeah, maybe. If they get a good window, yes.
All of us do that. All of us do that, not necessarily in the context of jobs. Next time you buy a car, trust me, 1 week after that you will go back and keep looking at the net for other cars of similar thing if you got better, whether you missed a good offer or whether there's something better. That's part of human nature. And it isn't very different from how we behave when we come to jobs as well.
Yes. They're not leaving. Maybe that survey should expand to see how quickly they leave, and that will settle some of the angst. You have some more
Yeah, I
points?
just wanted to add to this particular point. It was quite alarming to know that they probably look for opportunities every month. May not be all of them, but many of them. So it also reflects, I think, on the behavioral traits, because it's not just the performance and the talent, it's also the mindset, as somebody also just said, one of my colleagues here, that probably they're restless, and maybe problem solving is one of the most important motivator. So in case they don't have enough on their platter, to work upon and to give them a sense of achievement, they'd probably look at greener pastures.
Yeah, so how do you structure jobs which keep them engaged? It's very easy, maybe easier, I would say, to bring them inside.
Yes.
But once you get them, how do you structure the jobs in a manner that engages them for longer?
So we did discuss a specific point that probably we need to put such people in focused projects where a normal or an average or even an above average employee would probably not be able to contribute, and these top performers need to have something to feed upon all the time, in terms, they have this hunger for achievement and problem solving, so they probably should be put onto specific and focused projects rather than, the general routine jobs.
While it was not part of the study we published here, one reason we found was also difference in what was promised versus what was delivered, not necessarily in terms of pay, etc., but what they thought the work would be and what it actually turned out to be.
Just a quick one. I mean, these are millennials that we talk about, most of them.
Yeah, a lot.
A lot of them. These guys, we always say that they need great ideas. They're always looking for ideas, disrupting everything. Why would they not look at the outside market as well and find what's happening?
Yeah.
I mean, I would actually not like a person not just to kind of look inward. We always tell people to look outward. So outward is the jobs are also there outward. Why would they not look outside and keep themselves informed?
No, it's also become easier, right, through multiple channels, so maybe it doesn't hurt, is what I'm hearing, yeah? I may not prescribe to that, but fine, I mean, I take your point of view, absolutely, yes.
Our group also quite agreed with the fact that the 5 attributes rather remain common to most organizations and industries, but there could be a level of variation in terms of, weighing experience more than the bias for action. So right from a startup organization which probably looks at more bias for action than a proven track record or an experience, compared to an organization for which running a stable machinery with a proven track record and experience holds higher value. So 5 are important, but the balance may vary. So
Got it.
that's what we thought.
Thank you.
Leadership is universal, especially transformational leadership is universal. And the situation we are in these days, the passion and self-direction is something which takes it anywhere and everywhere. Other things will catch up. So organization context, in my opinion, may not be very relevant. Whatever you need, the leaders could succeed anywhere in any organization if you have these 5 traits.
Great. So you see these as, I'm hearing a unanimous vote that these are 5 universal attributes. Passion and basically bias for action is very important key element which can take you anywhere. So we are running out of time. I'll get to the second question. Very thoughtfully you'll have to answer this, right? You want to transform the organization, you get extraordinary talent from outside, right? But the ecosystem is different because you're trying to transform the organization, the ecosystem is different. So when you get them in, what do you need to do to make sure they stick? Because it will be challenging, right? How do you prepare them? Somebody said, there's a difference. You said, Shashi, that what was promised to what was seen was not exactly matching. Yeah, exactly. So, how do we prepare? Because, there's hiring process, which we learnt about, that it needs to be simple. What about the cultural aspects that impact the people who are coming in? Because the first 80-90 days, in my view, really make an impression on that talent, and they decide whether they want to stay or they want to leave during that time. So that's the second question I have, which you can discuss at your tables, and then we'll regroup back.
I think transparency is one of the most important thing when you hire a talent from the market.
Yeah, so we are just getting back. I know we can continue the conversation later as well, but there is pressure on time.
Especially when you are going through a transformation change, if you talk to a top talent and you discuss very clearly about that the why you are hiring people and what we are going through, your organization is going through currently, and you get their ideas that, okay, what do you think, why do they want to join your organization and what excites them, and if that falls in line to your talent search, I think they will stick to the organization first thing. Secondly, if you are able to show them the career pathing, that what lies for that kind of talent in your organization, and if these 2 things are there, if that matches, I think then you are able to retain a talent easily. That should not be a challenge.
So transparency and career pathing. Yes.
Yeah, hi. So we were discussing on our table on the same context. So we have come up with 3 words. So as he has also used, like set the right expectations with the candidate when we are onboarding him. So before onboarding, we should set the right expectation to the candidate. Second one is the transparency. We should be clear what our organization is. We need not to show any rosy picture to the candidate, so that once he is in and he is, coming up with something else in his mind and ensuing is, observing things in a very adverse situation. And third thing is fairness. So we should be very fair in each and everything, including reward and recognition and performance management system kind of thing. And the development path, succession planning should be clear. And there should be quite good example in the organization. So when some candidate is entering in the organization and I am, saying that you will reach in 5 or 10 years so-and-so place. So there should be existing example in the organization so that that candidate can relate to those examples, not only the statements.
I think a few things to add here. Talent is naturally tended towards action and really making a difference. So I think once you get a talent into the organization, the first 90 days, you have to make the person or throw the person into the swimming pool and actually let him or her figure out how he or she can make a difference to the organization, because the person needs to really feel that landed at the right place and there is something for me. So creating a space for the person, letting him actually drive the action that the person is really hungry for, and then appreciating and giving him the empowerment to really go forward with it. That's what we really feel beyond the context and beyond the recognition and everything.
Sure.
The talent joins the organization based on some vision, mission that the organization carries, and that's really influences a candidate's choice for the organization. Seeing that organization putting visible efforts towards that growth or change or whatever the organization is going through makes the talent believe in the organization in the first few months. And I think that also creates that kind of sense of belonging to the organization and trust in the organization.
Right. So, we pretty much heard transparency, setting right expectations, making sure that you give the right projects, that was a point that was highlighted as well, making sure that there are visible steps towards organizing, getting the organizational mission and vision much more believable to that talent. So these are things that, one has to do. And yet I think the organizations are not thinking about it, because we do onboarding of people similarly. It's one size that fits all. We are not thinking about who we are bringing in and how we need to change them. And that's the challenge I'll throw back to you. Look at our performance management system, right? These are 5 attributes which are everybody out here in this small set also believe is going to be a differentiator for a talent, right? And when we look at, creating competency models, some of them may feature, some of them may not feature, but we do end up having dialogue around what you haven't done well, and we don't talk about what you really are doing well as much. That's really how the conversations are going on. So, look at the processes that you have and see, are the processes attuned to getting this kind of talent? Because we saw the figures, and if these figures are working for those companies, how do I make that figure work for my own company is the thought I'll leave behind with you. And also make you think about, what are you doing about your processes to ensure that you have flexibility enough to catch these people and also be able to retain and build these people in the organization. I'll hand it over to Shashi in case he has any more thoughts before we wrap it up.
So nothing really, but I think thank you so much for being a wonderful audience and wonderful discussion.